This is Learned It from an 80s Song. I am your coach, Patricia Freiberg. Today we have a very special guest. Please welcome Maggie Jones. Maggie Jones is a U.S. American who moved to the Netherlands with her husband, 4-year-old, and Labradoodle in June of 2022. She earned her master's degree in school counseling from Loyola University, Maryland in 2014. She is twice published in the Journal of Counseling and Development. She has spent the past decade working in public schools to support the well-being of her students and families. Upon moving to the Netherlands, she took a leave of absence from counseling to focus on her family and her own well-being. She entertains herself by making videos about living abroad on TikTok. You can find her there at MJ_abroad. Welcome, Maggie. It is so great to have you here on Learned It From an 80s Song. And I just have to share how you to our audience, how I know Maggie or how I learned of her. So I am new to the TikToks. I am new to TikTok, and I just decided, I was going through one day, and since I post a lot about expat, the algorithms come up, and Maggie came up on my algorithm because she's an expat, and she lives in the Netherlands. So I loved everything that she had to say. And I was like, yes, I agree with that. It was like so reassuring to see her TikTok. And so I have not reached out to anybody on TikTok. I think I might have 11 followers, or I might be following 9 people. I don't really know. But my algorithm was, a lot based on my niece who's in college and dances on TikTok. So you can imagine my algorithm was like mostly dancing college girls and and then the occasional expat. And so I reached out and I said, hey, would you consider coming on Learned It From an 80s Song and sharing a little bit about, what your experience is like in the Netherlands and coming from the United States. And then when I got Maggie's, bio from the Google Doc and all of that, I thought, oh my gosh, we have so much in common. And I just really couldn't wait to have this conversation. I'm just so grateful that you're here today. So thank you again, Maggie, for being on the show.
Thank you so much. What a fun introduction. I am so happy that you found my TikToks. I started doing that just for fun to kind of entertain myself because, some major things in my life have recently changed and it's become like a tiny little community that I absolutely love and didn't expect to. I have one dancing video on TikTok and I'm not proud.
Hey, don't get me wrong. I like dancing. I just,
Yeah.
Dance all you want, everybody. Be free. So this is the part of the show where we have the big reveal as to what song choice from the 1980s Maggie will be choosing today. So without further ado, can I get a drum roll, please? Maggie, what is this song that best resonates with the story you're going to tell us today?
I chose I Won't Back Down by Tom Petty.
So good. Such a great song. Such a great story. And of course, as you guys all know, I do go down the rabbit hole. And I did on Wikipedia on I Won't Back Down. So this song is obviously Tom Petty. And it was from his first solo album, Full Moon Fever. And it actually came out in April of 1989. Now, it was number 12 on the Billboard Hot 100. And the song charted for about 5 weeks. and it started its album's road to multi-platinum status. So I mean, amazing album. But it's interesting. So I went down the rabbit hole and I found some really cool things because, you know, Maggie's going to share how the song resonates with her today, but for me, you know, it really feels a lot about resilience. And so as I was reading, interestingly, Petty recalled in this Mojo magazine that George Harrison, who was singing and played guitar when they were recording, apparently Petty had a really terrible cold, and you know, George went to the store and got him some ginger and put his head in the pot to get the, you know, the juices flowing and to help him help him with his sinuses. And lo and behold, he went right in and did that take. And so, like, how nice is it that, first off, like, I can't imagine producing this song, you know, with a cold. Like, that's incredible. And I guess, you know, that's the show must go on. I imagine in Hollywood in 1988 and 1989, you can't just go record the next day or what have you. And then I started looking at some of the critical reception. So part of being in academia is I have in the past year, the one thing I struggled the most with was my criticality. I needed to put more critical review into my papers, right? So now I'm like, well, what about this song did people say that was critical, right?
Yeah.
And I want to debunk it. So what they had said. So this is from the Scottish pop band Win, reviewed the song on May 13th in 1989, the issue of a British music newspaper called A Record Mirror. So what they had said was that this is what they said about the song. Petty, they said, he's definitely gotten old before his time,
Ooh.
and has surrounding himself with his heroes. And then another person echoed it and said, he seems to have willed himself into becoming a 40 years old has been. And, you know, those were just two reviews here. But I mean, then there were also amazing reviews, right? Which is sure to leave its mark in the build up to the release of his forthcoming LP. So obviously now, like looking back, right? What they had said, and then look at the power of this song, which has been used in a lot of political, 9/11. You know, this song is used to represent strength and endurance. And this is just, in my opinion, as I was reading and reflecting on it, you know, yeah, these negative reviews are going to come in, but yeah, he didn't back down, did he? And he just kept moving forward and got a multi platinum album. And amazing musician, amazing time, amazing song. Thank you so much for bringing this one in today.
I love this song. And I mean, it just is so, like, the lyrics are so simple. Like, it's not like lyrically blowing anybody away, but I think that's one of the things that's so beautiful about it. It's just that it can, I mean, without a whole lot of talking, and without a whole lot of, like, poetic language, it just gets right to the heart of it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well said. So, Maggie, share with us a little bit about your story today.
Sure. So, well, as you shared, I moved to the Netherlands with my family in June of 2022. I have a now 5-year old. She was 4 when we moved, and my husband, my dog, and I took a leave of absence from my work to do that, and in support of my husband. So he was recruited by a Dutch company to come here, and that's how we ended up here. But the lead up to this choice that we made to come is like the story that I want to share and that I want to talk about. And in the 3 years, I'll say 3 years just to encapsulate it. But in the 3 years leading up to us moving here, there were some of the hardest years of my life. I was grieving the loss of several pregnancies.
Mm,
I was sort of coming to terms slowly with the vicarious trauma that I was experiencing as a counselor in schools, and the kind of professional burnout that I was hinging on and starting to experience. And burnout can take a really long time, but coming to terms with that is what was happening with me, and that at the same time, I had been recently diagnosed with obsessive compulsive disorder, and sort of uh, try accepting that as a someone who works in the mental health space, and learning to be non-judgmental toward myself as I am toward other people struggling.
Yeah.
Uh, these are all the things that were happening in the couple of years leading up to this choice, and so it was divine intervention that this opportunity to move abroad came up, for different reasons for all of the various members of my family.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah,
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that.
of course.
Yeah, it's amazing. I'd love to hear a little bit about, that. Oh, yeah. So you moved in June of 22, you said?
Hmm.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so like 8, 9 months ago, somewhere like that,
Yes.
somewhere around that.
Okay. Okay. Yes. And I'm here a year and a half in Switzerland. And I'd love to hear now at 8 or 9 months, we're getting close to a year, kind of
Hmm.
how have you seen things change for you? Has there been able to be some healing through, and I'm sorry for your losses prior to this. And
Yeah.
I can definitely, the burnout is real, in the mental health field, as I experienced that as well, which is how when I saw your bio and saw that, I was like, wow, yes, I wasn't alone, in that.
Yeah, and it can feel so isolating and lonely, even though it's so common. I think, especially in education, there's this pressure to feel like and perhaps it's self-imposed. Like, certainly, I did that enough to myself. That's this
Yes.
pressure to kind of feel, like, put on that brave face, like, get out there and just keep doing it. And if you're making one little difference, then that's what you need to hold on to. And certainly that helps. Um, but I think I just, when it comes down to it, wasn't taking care of myself in the way that I needed to. So this experience, talking about in the 8 or 9 months we've been here, what has there been an opportunity for healing? Enormous. It has changed my life. And I think that you know if and when we go back to the States, and if and when I return from this leave of absence that I've taken, which, very grateful for my school system that gives employees this opportunity in various situations. um, if I do that and I will only be successful, and I will only be able to rejoin that field, um, as a result of having this time to heal.
Yes.
I know, I mean, not to sound too heavy, but that's the
No,
reality for me.
no, no. And I think what's so fascinating, I I actually, so I took this course in graduate school called Positive. It was flourishing within organizations. And when you hear this, I think you will be really intrigued. So, I'm older than you are, and I was in the mental health field. This would go back to early 2000s. And I worked in the school system, and I burned out. I didn't do all I thought I was doing the things necessary to take care of myself, like go to the gym and do all these
Yes.
things. And and I
Yes.
wasn't. I also, not to get too, I don't think the system supported me in my mental health either. I think we were also, the mental health crisis, has increased through COVID, and I would be interested to hear a little bit more about that from you. But what I did find is that during that time, the system really didn't support the mental health of the practitioners, and I would work I would tell you what I made. This was after graduate school, my first graduate degree. I made $24,000, and I worked around the clock often, whether it's writing notes after work, whether, whatever it was. So
Yeah.
I love the work because I felt it was a calling for me. I wanted to care for others. I wanted to support others. I really enjoyed it. And work is a calling. That's a whole nother subject. I won't go down that. We'll talk about that some other time. But it does lend itself to over engagement in work, right? And for me, that was, I was absolutely engaged in my work and I really wanted to make a difference, but the system didn't support us. And there were, yeah. So I'm going to leave it at that. But what I will
Yeah.
say is that I wrote a paper in this course. So talk about healing. So I did all this academic research on burnout for mental health counselors, and I created a 6-week program
Wow.
to help build resilience for those, and work is calling for a lot of counselors and therapists. That is very much part that, oftentimes. And so anyway, and it was so therapeutic to actually create something for with a very minimal budget, like I had to put myself back into that place, in early, 2000s of, not much funding, right? Not much funding at all, and create this program. And it was so therapeutic for me to go back down that road and heal. And I'm doing it here in Switzerland, right? So it's
Wow.
like, it's given me sometimes, the expression where you take space away. And I don't know if this has been your experience, but how, things become more to get that bird's eye view, I guess you could say. Like enough time has passed, enough distance is placed between me and that challenging time, that then now I have that perspective, right?
Yeah, yeah, and it's catharsis. It sounds also like catharsis, to
Yes.
be able to then not only just heal and sort of look at something that happened from a bird's eye perspective and a third eye and sort of reflect, but also turn something positive, turn something, what am I trying to say? Create
Yes.
something.
Yes.
Create something for yourself and for others. I think that's the best thing we can hope for out of the difficulties we experience.
Yes.
You know, because there's a purpose for them. I'm not sure that I'm somebody who believes like everything happens for a reason.
Right.
um I don't love that. It feels trite to me. I don't begrudge anybody else who for whom that resonates. But what resonates with me much more is this idea of like what's for you will not pass you. What is for you will not pass you. And I have said it to
Mhm.
myself. I mean, my sister gave me like a bracelet that said it when I was experiencing some of my initial, like the first few pregnancy losses, and it was, I mean, it was, I clung to it.
Yeah.
But every turn I have made since in my life, it has turned out to be the case. And so I mean, the thing that I'm able to look at now when I look at was I on the precipice of just like fizzling out like a match in this work that I cared so much about?
Yes.
Was like, okay, well, this was for me. This experience was for me,
Yes.
and I must go through it in order to get to the other side to figure out and to create something good out of it. And so I'm not sure what that is yet, but we're going to get there.
Hey, absolutely. This is 20 years ago we're talking about. I was trying to do the math in my head. This is 20
Yeah.
years ago, and I'm still
Wow.
processing those years, those early
Wow.
years. And I think just life took over, right? But like what you're saying, it's like there's a reason, there is something that's going to come out of it. You don't know what that is yet, because we need to have that hindsight. We need that healing to be able to get to this point, right?
Yeah.
And um, where we feel like we can. I mean, I haven't done anything with my paper, don't get me wrong, but I plan to,
That's
I plan
amazing.
to help those who are helping others. And that was my whole goal behind it. Like, how can we support those in the trenches of COVID-19, you know, with the mental health crisis off the charts, and
Yeah.
I know within the mental health community it was such a challenging is and continues to be, because we're not out yet of the repercussions of COVID, obviously, and what had happened during those years, right, for people in mental health. How did you find it in the school system? So you were still working in the school system prior to COVID, or I mean not prior, I mean during
Yeah.
COVID.
Yeah.
And
So I am a school counselor. That's what I studied. That's what my master's is in. And so school counselors aren't therapists. We're not doing therapy in schools. Many school counselors are practicing therapists outside of the schools. But in schools, it's like there counselors are working with academic advising, social emotional health, and then a lot of like as needed mental health initial like short term brief mental health counseling, and a lot of referring out and helping connect uh, families to resources that can help them long term. What ended up happening is that, especially after COVID, there were so many immediate needs. There's so many that um, and this I think school systems are run by people who care a lot. There are a lot of people who care in school systems and who are trying to solve problems and are trying to get more mental health treatment available. But it's similar to what happens with school nurses, right? Is in really high needs communities where perhaps access to like physical health treatment isn't available. School nurses become like the default to where people are going to get their treatment, and
yes,
they're like, and that's sort of what happens in with school counselors. And so it was a lot of crisis counseling, a lot of assessment about harm to self and harm to others
yeah,
daily, and a lot of unfortunately a lot of terrible things happen to children when they are not at school all of the time, and
yes,
when a lot of uh, really important needs arise. And it was, for me, it was like an onslaught. Um, and I'm not going to speak to any other counselors' experiences, because there are some really amazing ones that are like still doing it, and they're still able to be present, and they're still able to work through it. But what I felt like I was needing was some like debriefing after these kind of critical incidents would occur. And what would happen is, because of the nature of schools and how they run and the resources that were available, is like we would have these critical incidents, sometimes several a day, sometimes several a week, and then no debriefing. It was like move on to academic advising, or move on to a
right.
classroom lesson, or move on to helping an angry parent, or talking to a teacher, or going to a meeting, and it was like there was never any debriefing. When you're taking that on and you're doing it in a way where you're really present and available, you have to access a lot of personal vulnerability to do that. And um, yeah, so that's sort of where I struggled.
Yes. Well, and then you brought up earlier the vicarious trauma, and vicarious trauma is real. When you, or they call it also secondary trauma, right?
Hmm.
Where you,
Yeah.
are um, experiencing through listening to the stories or the experiences that the children are having or the parents are having, and it's very hard to hear it secondhand or hear it firsthand from them, an experience that they had. It's trauma. It's traumatizing to hear it, especially when you care deeply about the children, as I did as a
Yeah.
counselor, and I know you do.
Yeah.
So I and not having a place to process that or debrief, like you said, or the time and space to do it, because it felt like, at least from the therapists and counselors I talked to during the time, um, there just wasn't there was not the time. There was so much coming at them at all times that there was no moment to process their own emotions around what's going on.
That resonates, what you just said, so deeply. And actually, I think it would resonate with a lot of people in the school system, in school systems, and certainly the ones that I know and I'm thinking of as I say this, that it is not for a lack of like desire to do good work on the behalf of educators, and even educators that go into administration and go into like running school systems. It is not a lack of genuine care for children or genuine desire to help or genuine like knowledge that there are needs and that their staff have needs as well. It's just a lack of time and resources.
Yeah.
I can't like that. And it's everyone. It is everyone
Yeah.
working in the school in every role.
Yes.
So
Yes.
it's wild. And
It
everybody's
is.
just, they're trying their best. They really, really are. All of them.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah.
Agreed. And I'm part of this mental health initiative here in Switzerland, and I go to the meetings every so often. And while I'm not practicing now as a therapist counselor, I do a lot of coaching. Right, I do it through that realm. So and also there's a lot of rules around Switzerland with
Yeah.
licenses and things like that. So it's just easier for me to put a coaching hat on, and I can
Yeah.
help, with some mental health concerns that come up. But but I stay in my lane. But what I would say is that what we're finding here in Switzerland is that the demand is high for the demand. We need more practitioners, we need more people, but it's hard to jump through all these hoops in order to be recognized by the country, so
Yeah.
and it's not just here, we have this in the US as well. And I was board certified counselor, clinical counselor, like LCMHC. I don't remember all the LCPC. I had different ones in
LCPC.
different states,
Yeah.
different ones in different states,
Yeah, why isn't
and
there reciprocity? Like that's something that I would love to advocate for on a grander scale. Like
me
reciprocity.
too. Me
I
too.
mean,
I mean, come on. That's why, and you know what? Not coupled with the burnout when I moved to California and jumping through those hoops, no reciprocity. I was like, all right, well, I'm going to change careers then. And so they lost a counselor because of it. And so
mhm.
I was good at what I did. I did burn out, but I do things differently now, and
Yeah, yeah,
but they're losing people. They're losing the people left and right because of all these red tapes, rules,
yeah.
and yet it's skyrocketing. The need for mental health, it has not plateaued. We are still in a
Oh
state
no.
of crisis where we need all hands on deck, right? But we also need to protect those that are serving, right? We need to protect those people, and you and the counselors in the schools, etc.
I mean, slow clap.
Yeah. Damn it.
I could not
Don't
agree more.
exactly. We're preaching the choir here, but we could really go down this. I could keep going and going, but it's just
Talk about it all day.
I wish that I would like to know. You and I will keep in contact and feel like,
Yeah.
and figure out what we can do on a bigger scale to make change. It just feels like this um the road ahead feels very steep and treacherous, like the Swiss Alps here, as I'm looking out the window. It's
What a
hard
view
to
that must be. Yeah.
it is a beautiful view. But yeah, the road up is challenging. But I think it's a necessity. Yeah, and it's hard to, as counselors and therapists out there in the community now, it's hard for them to advocate on a larger scale for change and yet still serve the community at the same time. It's, we need people who are just there to support the mental health professionals to help make change.
We need a lot more money
Yeah,
than anybody realizes for education. I don't care how much money everybody complains that we spend on education. We need so much more
much
of it.
more.
If they want education to be a one-stop shop for all everyone's needs for everything, then we need a lot more money.
Yes, we do, and safety and all of the things that are going on right now.
Yeah.
Yes. So turning a little bit to, because I could continue to go on and on about this. But if
Same.
audience, if you're listening and you are passionate about this, reach out to us. You'll know how to get in touch with Maggie on TikTok. Reach out to me. I think that supporting the mental health field and professionals is of the utmost importance right now. So it really is a call to action. So reach out and let's try to make some change in this. Maggie, I have to ask, you picked an amazing song, I Won't Back Down. And I'd love to hear how this song resonates with you.
Um, so mostly because it inspires courage, like it and it brings like this lightness to these things that can feel so insurmountable. Burnout, not having the resources to help people in the way that you want to be able to help them, struggling with your own grief or your loss, or struggling with whatever it is, anxiety, depression, in my case, obsessive compulsive disorder. It brings this like levity to it that I get. I'm not sure if you can tell. I tend to go like real deep real fast,
Mm.
and I just can't help it. It's who I am. It's not something I'm ashamed of anymore. But like that line, there's this line that, "Hey baby, there ain't no easy way out," that is just so like, okay, well, I got to get to the other side, and this is how
Yeah.
I have to do it. So let's dig deep. And it's a courageous thing to do, to turn inward. It is a courageous thing to do, and sometimes you just need Tom Petty to sing it to you.
Yes, yes, I do. I was listening to Tom Petty all morning. Yes, I appreciate that. And there is no easy way out. And I feel like the most learning, I think if there was an easy way out, we wouldn't get the learning from it. And I feel like
Yeah,
that has been the biggest takeaways, as I gave the example of writing that paper, processing something from 20 years ago, there wasn't an easy way out, but the learning came much later for me, when
yeah,
I'd reflected.
yeah. And also, there's like that one line, "I've got just one life." Like it's
Yes.
just like you can crawl into a hole if you want to, if you don't want to face everything that you've got, because we've all got it, whatever it is. We've got it. I've got it. You've got it. Anybody
Yeah, we got
listening
it.
has got it. Like you've got some stuff,
Right.
and we can easily avoid. And this is something I was doing, especially with the like the OCD that I was experiencing. I was compartmentalizing it, um, in order to focus on work and give as much as I could to the kids, um, and the families. And I was compartmentalizing, and then it would spike, and I would be like, "Oh, I got to deal with this," and
Yes.
I would go through the spike, and then I would be like, "Whew, okay, that's over.
Yeah, we're out.
I'm
Yeah.
gonna go back. I'm gonna go back to my real self, rather than like um, synthesize all the parts of me together
Yes.
and just
Yes.
be all one
Yes.
person, and that's enough, and like I am, and that there's like nothing wrong with me, and all of that kind of stuff. um that all takes an enormous amount of courage. It's something I'm really proud of.
Yeah.
But I was compartmentalizing the living what out of my life. And it
Right.
doesn't do anyone any good. The compartments get full, so if you don't
Yes.
like open them up and like air them
Right.
out,
Exactly. Do
it
some,
just sits there. Yeah,
yeah. Yes. And then it seeps out, right? You can't
yeah,
close the
yeah.
cabinet door anymore.
Like leaky pipes, like
Yeah.
water will find the crack in a
Yes.
leaky pipe. It will find its way out, and so will this if you don't take a deeper look. So,
Yes. Yes. And I think it's really interesting that you brought up bravery, which kind of, and courage that you brought up, just because it makes me think of the VIA strengths, which we talk about on this episode.
yeah.
And the VIA strengths are, 24 character strengths that are who you are, to your core are your signature strengths. So those are the first, 3 to 5, or actually they even say 3 to 7 can be your signature strengths. And what's interesting, as I was reading today about the VIA strengths, and once again, this is Peterson and Seligman who first came up with this assessment, and you can actually take the questionnaire online, and it's absolutely free. And there's so many benefits from living and working within your strengths. But what I was reading and reflecting on today, as I knew I was talking to you, was and then also from this past episode where I shared that bravery is my number 24 of, or 23 of 24 strength. So I am not, I was joking, that was like the cowardly lion, you know?
Oh,
And so I've had to lean into bravery like nonstop, you know, as an expat. And so what it
oh
made me
yeah.
think about was, as I was reading this morning, the statistics around that we actually can develop strengths. So while they're actually a little more fluid than, you know, some research shows that, you know, there is a lot to be said for your signature strengths and that they really are stable. And that is true. You know, there's a lot of research behind that. But there's also research, and especially now, about how we can actually develop strengths. And they can shift then in order. And I was looking at your amazing package of strengths, which you have, and if you don't mind, I can read them off to everybody.
Sure. Yeah.
So her number one strength is love, which I can absolutely feel just talking to you. Curiosity is number two. Social intelligence is three. Love of learning is four, and then bravery is your number five, and perspective. So I wonder, you know, do you think that, you know, has bravery always been in your youth? Do you think that that may have been one that may have shifted or gone up a little bit based on your experience of moving to the Netherlands? You know, what do you
Mm.
think, or even looking at acknowledging and starting to work through OCD diagnosis, you know, that takes a
Yeah.
great deal of bravery, as you were speaking and talking about how, you know, you kind of compartmentalized and kept them both separate, but then meeting it head on and then starting to work through it. I wondered, you know, that takes a lot of bravery as well.
Yeah, thank you for saying that. It does, it feels that way. I mean, um it definitely feels like something that's always been a part of me, but that you know, like being willing to just kind of walk into something difficult. Um but yeah, since coming to the Netherlands, I've had this time and space, right? Because I'm on the leave of absence from work. So I'm here with my family. I'm here with myself.
Yes.
And that can be a real scary thing when
Oh,
you're used to going 100 miles an hour every day, or
yes.
when you're living in a survival mode, like when you're just doing, and then all of a sudden it stops. It was like, it's taken yeah, I do think that I have that cultivated more bravery, and because I don't think I could have honestly, without the opportunity to do this, to come and live this life here, I'm not sure that I would have had the ability to get myself off of like the hamster wheel to do what I needed to do to take care of myself so that I could
Yep.
take care of other people. Like I don't think I could have, I wasn't in a place where I was like, okay, I'll just meditate and I'll do my skincare routine and I'll go for a hike because these are things that bring me joy, right? I'll play the guitar and I'll watch, you know, I'll spend quality time with my family and it will just fix everything.
Yes.
Like, I was past that point.
Yep. Yes.
so, so it is an act of bravery, I think, to sit and look at yourself when you don't have anybody else around, when you're a million miles away from your family and your friends and all of the people who love you and who make you feel like yourself when you don't feel like yourself. So
Yes.
that's been, I think, something that's that through this opportunity of becoming an expat in the Netherlands, I've been able to be brave enough to look and say, you know, this is This is what I needed. This is where this came from. If I'm not going to burn out in any other work that I do, I need to look at myself, and I need to
Yes.
look at what I need to look at how I define my worth and value so that I don't let myself get to that point. I need to learn how to take care of myself
Yes.
truly, like learn how to take care of myself.
Yeah.
I don't like the term self-care. I think it's a little like,
Yeah. Oh God. I get it. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah,
it's
it
like
can
a
be a little
buzzword.
contrived and it can be a little bit like, well, you need some self-care. Then it becomes very accusatory,
Yeah,
or like, but you're going to add that to my plate. Like, I'm already telling
yeah,
you I'm burned out and now I got to take care of myself. Like, I don't have that capacity, like
yeah.
at that time, at that moment.
Exactly right. And so, yeah, but it is so much easier just to live every day and function every day and do what you have to do, and but it's not nearly as fulfilling. I'm starting to feel whole for the first time I think ever. And
Wow.
I'm in my late 30s, and I just like that's been the biggest gift of this experience. Like I had my kid, that was my biggest gift,
Yes, and
But
congratulations again. And I know it was
thank
a
you.
hard road to get there and a challenging road. And I'm so happy for you.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, she is a gift. She is a gift in so many ways. But so is this opportunity to be like, I need to be, if I'm gonna, I need to live like all of I need to live with all of the pieces of me at the same time and learn how to take care of them and like learn that that person is enough if I'm not gonna burn out in another, when I go back
Yeah.
to work.
Yes, I hear you, and good for you for learning that in your late 30s because it's taken me a little longer to get there. And then I had to I had to go study the science of well-being to figure it out, right? So,
I
uh,
love that.
oh, but
Well, it
you'll
is
laugh
like,
because I did the graduate degree in a year. It's a 2-year program. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to do it in a year. And I'm like, wow, here you go again. It's like, how about pacing? How about, so it's kind of funny. I'm
that's
like, when I was writing my dissertation, I reached out to my friend in Scotland because it's distance learning. And I said, how is it that I'm studying the science of well-being and I am not well? I'm not well, you know?
Yeah, and I have a really, really incredible therapist, and she said this thing to me, and I've been with her for many, many years. And she said this thing to me once, where when I was kind of like coming to terms with this, really having disordered thinking, like which is what OCD
Yes.
is it's like, well, I was really struggling to accept that like I could struggle with something like this. And she was like, "Well, do you think you're better than other people?" And I was like, "No, oh my God, no, like."
Yes.
And she was like, "Well, then why on earth are
Right.
you like look at the self criticism that's happening here?" And
Wow.
just the way that she framed it for me was really helpful because
It's
she
like
was like,
giving you
"Well, you
permission.
must." Yeah, she was like, "You must think you're like above it all if you're judging yourself this harshly for it." So that's been it was the beginning for me of the turnaround of this. Like,
That's
okay, well, what
fantastic.
does it mean to accept, and what does it mean not to judge, and can I really love other people enough to help them if I am being so self critical and so that's where like all of these other strengths that then when I saw the array of them, I was like, oh wow, that's really cool. I see myself in a lot of these things, and I see like turning my curiosity about, I mean, literally everything. I will go on a like a 5 hour Google just to find out any information about anything I'm interested in. But
Yes.
like turning that curiosity inward, turning that like love of learning about, like turning it into my myself, like learning about myself. So,
Yes. Beautiful. And the fact that
well, thanks.
you're giving yourself that space and time. And I do think that sometimes it takes going to a whole nother part of the world to get to really know who you are, for better for worse, right? I mean, I've had a lot of a reflective alone time. It can be, I have met friends here, but there were times and there are times that you feel a little lonely, because you
Oh
are
yeah.
around nobody's awake in California,
Yeah.
half the day, and so it's and
Yeah.
you can feel alone, and but it's in those spaces where you really start to get to know yourself, and as uncomfortable as it is sometimes, and yeah, I think that yeah, that I mean, I'm still processing what I've been learning, and it's hard, because it's in fact I was going to do a podcast, another one called the Swiss Misses Show, and I have one episode because I couldn't get past the first episode because it's I'm learning as I'm going, and I'm trying to, um, it'll come. But I think I'll still do it, but it's just the learning is happening at such a rapid pace that it's hard for me to synthesize it. Right? Does that make
Mhm.
sense?
Yeah, it does. It does. Yeah. It's well, and there's this other thing. There's this like, and I'm glad you brought that up. But when when you're working in a counseling capacity with other people, you're giving them this like, here, try this, here, try
Yeah.
this. Like, what about this? Let me help you figure out what you need to figure out to get to your place that you want to get to. And if you're not like doing that too, it can be as genuine. You can be as genuine as you want with someone, right? But like,
Yes.
there's theory, there's knowledge, there's academic knowledge, and then there's like putting it into practice. It's the same way
Yes.
with parenting.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Like, I know what I want to do. It's
Yes.
doing it in the hard moments that takes
That
the
takes.
courage.
Yes,
Yeah.
so much. Yeah, so much. Well, I really thank you for sharing all of your amazing strengths with us,
Oh,
and I can see how you use them in the Netherlands, and you have used them through all of the challenges that you have gone through. And thank you for your vulnerability and for sharing them, because
of course.
it's through the sharing that others can learn and be okay with themselves with challenges. And so thank you for that.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that. I think that's the greatest thing you can hope for when you're out loud about what you're struggling with is that it makes other people comfortable
Exactly.
to share
Exactly.
their own.
100%.
Yeah.
So, with that, what advice would you have for our audience? Like, or what would be your key action item? I mean, we already know if anybody's in the mental health or passionate about mental health, our call to action is like, what can we do to change this? And I don't know the answer right now, but the second, action item, based on your experience and what you've learned, what would be your key component?
Well, I mean, I think so. I think we've talked a lot about courage today, and that's sort of like what resonates with me about the song and sort of about this whole experience. But it comes in so many forms, right? Like we talk sometimes in the mental health space about trauma, big T trauma, little T trauma. Um, but I would say like everybody has something going on, right? So if you are trying to live in a value of courage, if that's something you want to do for yourself, like make a list of like little C and big C things that would be courageous acts for you.
Yes.
And like the way to just pick one and work on it. Even if it's a
Yes.
little thing like in the throes of an OCD spike, sometimes like all of the courage I can muster is like is getting up and doing more than the bare minimum, right? Like brush my
Right.
teeth, take a shower,
Yes.
and like do something for myself. That is an act
Yes.
of love for myself. That's courageous. It may be
Mhm.
little C to some people, and then there's like the big C here, with the obvious one being like, yes, I will drop my life in one place and move it completely to another place. So
Yes.
just anything that like, but you got to kind of dig into it. So I guess the call to action, or the thing I would recommend people do if they're trying to live more in courage is make a list of the things that would be courageous, little and small. I mean, little and big,
Yes.
and choose one to work on.
Yes. Love that. Beautiful. Like wonderful example, and I think that's something an action item for all of us to do, and I'm thinking my wheels are turning in mind of the sea, all the different seas.
Oh
And I,
yeah.
yeah, and I definitely think that I'm going back to German today. So I go back to that takes a lot of, that's a big C. If studying German is a big C, no matter what, no matter if you're in the most supportive environment, German just in general, that just requires a big C.
I'm with you. Dutch as well. Dutch as
Oh,
well. Yeah.
yes. Learning a new language, it's humbling. And I have to have here's my C's though. Here would be a small C. Like I know how to order my coffee and definitely know how to order my Weisswein, in German.
hmm
So I will start to use my German. It takes such courage because I'm not going to conjugate the second verb at the end of the sentence, or I'm not going to do the first one properly, or something's going to
Yeah.
happen. And then they're going to speak back to me in English, and that's fine. But but it's
I know they
still
do the same thing here.
it's about
Yeah.
trying, right? It's
It's
about
about trying. It's about showing up for yourself the way you would show up for other people. Like,
yes.
yeah.
Yes, 100%. So, this is also the part of the show where we get to share a little bit about your favorite. I know you weren't even alive in the 80s, but
I
um,
was for
okay, you
five
were.
years of it.
All
Yeah.
right. I sorry, not my math is not my strong suit.
Same girl.
But you were a
Same.
baby. You're a mere baby in the 80s. But what would be looking back, or since then, what would be something that you really love the most about the 80s, I guess you could say, trend wise or people wise?
Mhm. So I really love the concept of like high-low dressing. I'm really inspired by it, like pairing really sophisticated, structured pieces or nice pieces with something that's a lot more casual. And I think, Princess Diana really kind of set the stage for that. And so she's definitely my favorite person of the 80s. Well, Princess Diana and Mr. Rogers. I think like Mr. Rogers less for his style and more for
Right.
his style of being present with people. Um, I should have said him from the beginning. No,
Yes.
Princess Di was incredible, and I just like the way that she was. I mean, she was kind, but she was also cheeky. Like she was really rebellious. She was, but very like present with people. She said so much with what she did with what she wore,
Mhm.
and I think that's probably my favorite style thing
Yes.
about the 80s. Yeah.
Yes, that's well, you picked an amazing, I mean, what an icon. And I'll have to say that we
Yeah.
we were talking a little bit about this prior to the show, but just that living in Switzerland and you living in the Netherlands, it's interesting. I do follow the royals a bit more than I did before.
Yeah. Yeah, I do. I mean, I do too. It's a lot more of a thing here than it is at, I guess, in the States that I experienced. I mean, I
Yes.
definitely watched the royal wedding from like my bedroom back in the day in my like
Yes.
apartment in Baltimore,
Yes.
Maryland. Like I remember sitting there and watching the royal wedding, but in terms of like people are really invested in this part of the world. And
Yes.
also, dressing well is a much it's like a much more important part of culture. I mean, I wouldn't say like that Dutch people really necessarily care what you wear, but
Yes.
you don't like, there's, I try not to wear leggings to school drop off. I'll put it that way because like
100%.
nobody does it. Nobody does it.
Nobody does it.
They do it
Nobody.
when they're actually working out. And I'm like, really? I just didn't feel like wearing pants with buttons today.
Right. People even change after they work out. Like, no, I
Yeah.
mean, I walk back out with my leggings on because I lived in California and it's like, no, I'm gonna go home and shower and do my whole thing. But no, people full on have an outfit that they transition to the street in. And
Uh-huh.
I haven't been able to jump on that one
Mm.
yet. I mean, I've thought about it, but I'm like, well, what would I put on over my leggings and but it's so fascinating. But I
It
wouldn't pick
is.
up my kids in leggings either. If I go to the doctor's office, I'm wearing a nice outfit.
Yeah, and it's just, I mean, it's part of the culture, but like there's another little C thing, right? Like, so it also, though, I will say, once I started doing it and wearing less like athleisure, um, not to fit in, but just because I want to integrate into the
Yes.
culture. And like, I don't
Yeah.
think anybody would really care. Like, I don't care if some Dutch
No.
person in line at the, Kruidvat like hates my leggings. I don't care. But what I will say is doing it makes you feel good. It is a
Yeah.
way to help me show up for myself, to
Yeah.
like do it. Wear your nice sweater and your jeans and your, like
Yes.
wear things that look good on you. It feels good. Like it
Yes.
is. So that's an act of courage in itself.
It's true. No, it's absolutely true. By the way, everybody, you have to follow Maggie on TikTok because she talks a lot about the differences in from what she misses from the U.S.,
Yeah.
and or things that she does not miss from the U.S. And so it's at MJ underscore abroad, and that's on TikTok. But check it out, everybody. Like it made me laugh out loud. That's why I had to reach out to you on TikTok to bring you on
Thank
board, but
you.
I had no idea that we had so much in common. Just and it was so
Yeah.
fascinating.
This is why I started this making TikTok videos, which, I initially started doing this on YouTube, but it felt too serious and it felt too disconnected and it felt too much like I had to be some sort of expert in something that I was sharing like guidance. And
Yeah.
I'm just trying to talk about things that I think are funny or interesting.
Yes. Yes.
And then TikTok, like I didn't initially think I would ever use that app because so many of my students used it and I'm like
Yeah.
older or whatever, but I actually really like it. It's a very free spirited place, if
Yeah.
you stay away from all of the
Crazy stuff.
crazy stuff. Yeah.
And yeah, so I mean maybe just as closing, what things do you miss from the US?
Unequivocally my people. So, I mean,
Yes.
that is a silly thing to say. I mean, it's an obvious one, but like, I think the hardest thing for me about being here is missing out on like the everyday lives of my nieces and nephews. My siblings were very close. We all lived within like 10 minutes of each other, 15 minutes of each other. Same thing with my mom. So, and my friends, like I have the best group of girlfriends that you could imagine, like the people, the kind of friends that you imagine really wanting as
Yes.
like a young person. Like, will I have this one day? And I have it. And I'm so grateful for it. But it's hard to be away from them. So other
Yes.
like less serious things I miss include dill pickles, which I
Yeah.
have started making myself. I miss Target every once in a while.
Target.
Yeah, it's this interesting thing because I miss convenience, but I also am really grateful not to have life as convenient as it was. And I talk about that in I think the video that you're referencing,
Yes.
um, which I've pinned at the top of my page because it's like the
Oh,
one with the
great.
most views or whatever. But
Yes.
yeah, I I miss the convenience, and also I'm glad not to have it. It's strange.
It's a weird thing. Like I'm
It is.
cooking more than I ever have before. Whereas in California, I could get a green salad, and the juice
Yes.
and this and that. Like it was so easy. I really didn't cook that. I didn't have to cook that much. But now living
Yeah.
here, going back to having time to reflect to yourself and thinking about, for instance, I would have said, oh, I miss things being open all the time. On
Yeah.
Sundays, Switzerland's completely closed. Like,
Yeah.
you can go to the mountains
Same.
and,
Yeah.
and things like that, but you can't go shopping. You can't,
Yeah.
you've got to do all your shopping prior to Sunday. And then everything is closed at 7. So there's no late night shopping, except for at the train station. So, it's
Yeah.
just, we've gotten accustomed to it. So now I have like my local farmy, delivers on Friday or Saturday for the weekend.
Yeah.
So I'm learning how to do that. But the beauty of that is on Sundays, even if we're not doing anything, we're doing nothing together, you know? Like,
It's so much easier to be present here in your life. Like it is unbelievable. And just like the way that top down, the culture values quality time over almost anything else is, there are things that are difficult about that when you come from the States because you're used to just getting whatever you need or want whenever you need or want it.
right.
And that's frustrating. because we all
Yeah.
like our creature comforts. But what it allows you to do is just like be. And I
Yes.
don't know that I really knew how to do that before. I
No.
really, honest to God, am not sure I did. It's learning a different way of being, and it lends itself to healing.
Yes.
It really does. And I mean, there are definitely other things that I miss about the States. I think like I miss mountains. I mean, they have some small mountains in the Netherlands, but it's not, it's not like I miss the Appalachian Mountains, I miss
Yes.
like, um,
I understand that. But Switzerland's not that far away from you.
no, it's not.
And we have a lot of mountains here.
You do have a lot of mountains. There is an overnight train, I think. It's like a six
Exactly. And I
hours.
need to go to the Netherlands too. So,
Yeah, come to
'cause-
Amsterdam.
yeah,
Yeah.
I know I gotta go check that out. I have not
Yeah.
been yet. My son has though. He went
Oh,
with
cool.
school last year. They did a tour, a boat tour, a sailing or something like that. And
Oh, that's
yeah,
awesome.
yeah.
Yeah, there's so much to explore here. Like I just went to Rotterdam for the first time. I live outside of
Ooh,
Amsterdam, not in like close to Amsterdam, but not in it. And I hadn't been that far south, and it was such a cool experience. I went with friends for a birthday.
yes,
Funny enough, like for a person I went to college with, who I found on like a Facebook parenting group, and I
amazing.
reached out to her and was like, "Hey, do you remember me from college?" And she
Yes.
was like, "Yeah." And now we've become friends, and I'm super grateful for that because she introduced me to other friends. So that's the other thing. Like sometimes you just need one connection to hold on to, right? Like
Yes.
one person who
Yes.
who can make it feel like, oh, I can see
Home.
myself making this feel like home. It takes some time though, and that's hard.
It is. It does take time.
And it's
Uh,
lonely. Like there's no other way. You have to like being alone, I think, in some capacity if
Sometimes.
you're going to
Yeah.
do this.
Absolutely. 100%. No, I agreed. And like you said, just one person can make that difference. I remember the first couple weeks we were here, I didn't talk to anybody but my family, and
Yeah.
thank God for them because I don't know what I would have done. And
Yeah.
I remember meeting a friend of a friend of a friend who lived in Lucerne, and she just changed everything for me. Just having that one person, to share and to talk to and to have in the city to call if to have coffee or what have you. It made all the difference in the world. Well, this has been an absolute pleasure to talk to you today.
Yeah, it
Thank
has.
you
Thank
so much.
you.
And like I said, audience, we have our marching orders,
Mhm.
little C's and big C's. Exactly. And I'll be practicing that today with my German. And then and then secondly, follow Maggie. And that's at MJ underscore abroad. And
Yes.
find her on TikTok, and you will be pleasantly surprised and amused. So,
Yeah, come join the
and
crew.
thank you. And
Thank
thank you,
you.
Maggie, for your vulnerability and for sharing your story today. And I think it's important for people to know that they're not alone. And and I thank you for sharing that.
Of course. Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
Yes. Well, until next time.
All right. Bye.